All right. So I guess I should introduce myself first because I always forget to do that. So my name is Sarah Milligan. I am the department head for the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the Oklahoma State University Library. I'm also the chair of the Education Committee for the Oklahoma Archivists Association, who are our host today for part 2 of the webinar series, Digital Platforms Examined. Today we're going to be looking at Omeka. And leading our discussion and our walkthrough today is Tara Carlisle, who's the head of the Digital Scholarship Lab at the University of Oklahoma. This is going to be a brief, relatively overview. 30 minutes is our expectation for today. We will definitely be monitoring the chat and be jumping in with Tara if there are questions that come up for clarification, but we'll also have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. And I know that if the Q&A runs a little bit over 30 minutes, I think that's okay too. So without further ado, I will pass this over to Tara.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. Getting this set up. Hello, everyone. I just thank the Oklahoma Archivists Association for running the series. I think it's really helpful for all of us. I know I'm interested in two of them, and it was really fantastic to attend and learn a little bit more. So hello, and I will dive in to Omeka. I'm introducing you today to the basics of Omeka, and I'm going to show you some examples of sites. I'm going to go over what to consider before you create an Omeka digital collection, and then I'm going to give a brief preview of behind the scenes, the editing side, and all kind of overview-ish. And then, of course, answer your questions at the end or throughout, if that's the case. So what is Omeka? It's an open source web publishing platform. It's for sharing digital collections. It's and creating online exhibits. It's the platform Omeka is sometimes referred to as a collection management system. I've also often heard it to be referred to as a content management system or CMS, any of the above. It was developed by Roy Rosenweek's Center for History and Media Center at George Mason University, and currently is maintained by those organizations and the Corporation of Digital Scholarship. And it's there's an active Omeka community, user community, who contribute to its development. So I said it's open source. What does that mean? Open source is that the underlying the software, the code is shared and openly available, and it's free. And so often what happens with what may start as a very simple application, because of an active user community and it being open source, others contribute to its development. And also, what's great about an open source tool like Omeka is that it is free for the, so I will get into more of that, because I mentioned the benefits of Omeka is that it's low cost. It provides pre-built templates. It's metadata ready. I will explain what I mean by that. And it's customizable. It's possible to keep it simple and build a no-frills collection management system. That's even private, or it's possible to build a fully featured, customizable platform that has exhibits, maps, image galleries, and more. So it's really kind of up to you as you're developing your own site. And so who uses Omeka? Lots of people. We were just, in fact, Sarah was just mentioning some of the groups some of the projects that she knows of and she's been working with. And so, it just kind of pops up all their Omeka sites, and lots of Omeka sites out there. And I provide a link to a directory of some Omeka sites as well. So museums, archives, libraries, educators, nonprofit organizations, even personal collectors have created Omeka sites. I'm going to show you this example project. This is just a lovely, simple site, the American Antiquarian.org. It's a library, historical library. And they wanted to feature a collection, their Louis Pring collection, with images and with lots of content to kind of contextualize the collection, provide some good in-depth information. So there you can see here, it's a nice kind of opening page, and the navigation is very straightforward. They have a chromolithography, that's actually a collection that they highlight, a Oriental ceramic art in the navigation, and then there's an education portion, and then their image gallery. So pretty simple parts to it, but really quite in depth and rich. Their gallery, they have a gallery of images that highlights the ceramics, and actually these are pictures from a catalog of their ceramic collection. And it also has excerpts from this historic catalog within the description. So you see a gallery of images on the left, and on the right is a portion of a description of one of the, the ceramic piece, or two of the ceramic pieces. And you can see below that image, there are the descriptive terms, and that is the metadata. And that is, I can see that's the Dublin core schema that they are using to describe their objects in their collection. So, in-depth information about each item, divided into collections, and then kind of a nice narratives about it. The second site I want to show you is more extensive. Making a Modern America is the name of the site. Discovering the Great Depression and New Deal was created by a team of students at OU who spent the semester documenting, photographing, writing about the Workers' Progress Administration progress throughout Oklahoma. So this collection includes photographs, oral history interviews, records, documents, some generated by the students themselves, some collected from other digital collections that they added to provide context. And they visited archives, they visited OSU. So it was a really great kind of full semester immersive experience in creating this collection. And you can see on the right some images of them interviewing heads of museums and some of the archives, and then a little bit of a thumbnail of their map. The students learned how to describe items in online collections using Dublin Core metadata standards, which was a real learning curve for them. It was pretty much of a challenge. Students, they're generally used to just adding tags. Adding the tags was the easy part, but having them kind of go through the more disciplined process of coming up with subject terms, determining a title and creator and looking that up and researching all the aspects of dates and so forth, was more time intensive. And as I said, it was they had to be disciplined at creating these records. And they learned a lot. They learned, the great power of metadata that makes something discoverable and searchable. And so I think it was a really good learning experience for them. This is an image from one of the Mays Avenue camps of, it's a Russell Lee image actually that they took from another collection to add to this collection, which was perfectly okay. And then they were able to map that. And then, so the class was divided into 5 student groups who documented the location of the WPA projects, buildings, bridges, roads, and art. And so they created some of their own videos as they traveled the routes. And then they also created an interactive map that shows landmarks. And if you click on each of those landmarks, there's an image with a little bit of an annotation of what that landmark is about. A picture of an image or a bridge, an image of a bridge or a building with a little bit of description. So interactivity and also a timeline below that. So really quite extensive. And that kind of gives you the range of, kind of a simple collection to something where they built it out over time with a team of people. So what to know before getting started in Omeka? Things that I learned along the way. One of them was I'd hear omeka.org and I'd be omeka.net, and I just had for the longest time, and it took me a while to figure out what the differences were. And so here it is in a nutshell. Omeka.org is free. You provide the web browsing. In other words, you're hosting the site on your own web server, on your own server, your institution server. You're responsible for for coming up with the web domain. You're storing the images, you're able to do the customization, and you also have the responsibility of kind of keeping the various versions of Omeka. It comes out with, you know, new updated versions. It's up to you to kind of maintain that and keep those updated. And they're, you know, and one's notified with, one's provided with, you know, notifications to update it. So we use omeka.org, and we have our own server, and so we're able to kind of manage it that way. Another choice, and that is if you don't want to supply your own web server, you don't want to be hosting the site and managing it necessarily, there is a choice of omeka.net. And so there's a cost, and it's, you know, reasonable cost, tiered pricing based on the size or scale of your project. Web hosting provided, storage depends on the plan. And there's some customizable choices for lower tiered, more so for higher. And also kind of a peace of mind is Omeka automatically does the updates for your project, for your software. Omeka.net, here's a screenshot of the pricing. I just wanted to show you. They allow you to kind of, to help you choose which tier would be good for you. You can kind of choose, okay, these are the things that I'm gonna have on my site, and therefore which tier would you recommend? I'm going to pause a minute and just talk about something that's really important about online collection, digital collections, and Omeka specifically, and that is storage. What do we mean by storage? I will say that Omeka is not a digital preservation repository. You should never be uploading high-res TIFFs, your archival TIFFs, to Omeka. There's no need for that, because Omeka is for online viewing. It's for the purpose of viewing a collection, navigating and managing a collection, but it's not for preservation purposes. Your preservation high-resolution TIFFs, high-resolution media needs to be on a cloud, another storage source, another server, or a cloud storage, AWS, somewhere else, and then you create derivatives or low-res copies to be added to Omeka. So that's why the storage for Omeka would never be need to be really in, you know, large capacity, because if you're using a lot of low-res images and also your videos, also kind of condensed, then your streaming video, then it should be, you know, 5 gigs should be reasonable. Having said that, though, Platinum is 50 gigs of storage. It's not a whole lot. And so, which brings me to another point about Omeka, and that is it's not really designed for collections of hundreds of thousands of items. I would say 100,000 items and less would be kind of reasonable. Anything more, you're wanting to look at more robust digital asset management systems. So it's not for preservation purposes, it's for online viewing, it's for managing your collections and access to your collections. That's its strength. So move on to there. So the basic elements of Omeka, this is where I'm going to give you a preview of behind the scenes and what it looks like. Here we have the basic elements of I'm starting with the Omeka test site, brand new plugins, appearance at the top, navigation. Those are two big areas, elements of what you'll be building and working with. And then on left hand, the items and collections, also important building blocks to your website, your Omeka site. And appearance are themes, templated themes, and then individual items that are also included that you'll be describing, and then collections. If you have created a website with WordPress, or you may be familiar with the term theme, each theme is slightly different design. However, unlike WordPress, these theme templates have a collection management system built in. So you have a website, a collection manager, and an online exhibit all at once. This is really nice to have this in place already, and you're focused on content and what content you're going to contribute to it. You can add items individually using the Dublin core in the upper, in the tab up ahead. This is opening up. The default is Dublin core element set. You can add more fields, more items. You can choose other fields. And then as you described, and this is an empty blank template that I can, add descriptive information about the item. I can add the image as well as make it public and also choose a collection for it to go into. I can also batch add, so I can, if I have a CSV of metadata, maybe 100 records, I can also kind of batch load that into batch load that into the site or your Omeka platform. There are some kind of controlled lists, and that is like for types of items. There's already controlled lists of the types of items. So as one's describing an item, they can choose what type of item, and then the fields are then customized according to that type of item. There's even one for a person. So yeah, it's very nice. We were working with a collection that consisted of Native American tribes, and so we brought in our controlled list of Native American tribes that was more updated and accurate. It's also possible to create various collections within your large collection, maybe breaking it down to type of item or breaking it into a gallery or a particular exhibit, and you're wanting to kind of create a subset. So it's absolutely possible to do that and then assign those items in batch mode to a collection. So here's an example of this modern art gallery, the artwork collections. So they have all of these sub collections by type of item within their collection management system, as well as maybe the name of the collection, Tyler collection and the artwork collection. So it's easier for your users to browse and find items. That may be one reason you'd want to be creating collections. And within those collections, so as I mentioned, you have a way of batch editing items. So if you haven't determined the collections, as you're adding and inputting information about the collections, or you've just batch loaded a bunch of metadata of individual items, you can then go in after the fact and determine what collections, how you want to divide them up into collections, and do that in a kind of a batch mode process. You're not having to go into every single record and say, in this collection, necessarily. I hope that makes sense. Plugin features are really the heart of the customization. There are many types of public plugin features to add. They're little packets of code that give you, that enable you to do a particular function. So in this case, we're looking at, I've added an exhibit builder plugin. So that allows me to build an exhibit and gives me the code to help me be able to do that. Another one is simple page. It's just a web page, but it is the code to help me build a simple web page that I might need that's not included in the original Omeka software. There's a huge list of plugins that you can choose from. Keep in mind, it takes time to add and configure these plugins. I have spent hours troubleshooting a particular plugin. It will take time. Some take more configuration than others. So depending on how customized you want your website to be, depends on how much development work you want to put into it, or if you have someone who is dedicated to your site, who can then go in and add the plugins and work with them and kind of customize them as you need to and integrate them into the website. So some of the plugins are strictly functional, like you may see on the list, a bulk metadata editor. That's a really good, practical, functional plugin. And then others are like Neatline. That is the interactive map feature. So that's what we used for the students' website. And so moving along. Okay, almost done here. So Omeka Classic, this is another one that confused me. So what's the difference between Omeka Classic and Omeka S? Omeka Classic, these are kind of more styles. Omeka Classic is the original Omeka software designed for single site around a general theme. And Omeka S is like next generation version designed for larger scale multiple digital collections. And it's designed to integrate linked data and allow kind of more cross-platform interoperability. So it's, yes, it includes those wonderful features of the semantic web. It also enables you to much more easily share your metadata with DPLA because that's built in, and that has kind of more extensibility, more customization and design. And that is what on the right is what its admin side looks like. And you can see it's a little bit more sophisticated, clean kind of design, but it also requires more more development. So I've been poking around. They allow you to kind of play around with their sandbox. You can just on the spot right away, just get right in. You don't even have to sign up for any kind of account. You can just get in and sign into their sandbox. And it's really helpful to just kind of poke around and see what they have. So if you're wanting something that's a little bit a little bit more cutting edge, but might require some time in getting to know it, this is a good choice to use. So kind of as a recap, because that was like going through everything pretty quickly. Hosting and maintenance, the choices to make are, do you want to host your Omeka.org site for free and kind of take a little bit more responsibility for it, or do you want Omeka to host it for you? And so, and then you have that cost in that tiered structure. The other choice is, do you want, in terms of the design, to keep it simple to Omeka Classic, that really is kind of, it's pretty intuitive. It's really focusing on just kind of adding your content and being as customizing as you want to, or Omeka S, where you're really thinking about big plans, maybe for your institution, to have multiple sites, to really, kind of make it maybe more sophisticated and work with it in those kinds of ways. So that's kind of things to be thinking about, especially since if you're getting started with your collections. You can, by the way, migrate from Omeka Classic to Omeka S. I have not gone through that process. I'm about to go through that process. I will let you know after that happens. Some tutorials for you, and I think I can share these. I'm just gonna copy these. Oh, I can't, no. And thank you, you guys. But we have some tutorials, and once I stop sharing, I will add these links into the chat if that would be helpful. I'm also glad to share this presentation, these slides with you as well. Programming Historian has a great tutorial by Miriam Posner. The College of Worcester Libraries, Katie Hill, really helped me quite a bit. She's a wonderful LibGuide, and she kind of goes over these very, the same factors that I did, the same considerations that I did. She does it with her LibGuide, but she also has some good video tutorials. And then we have an Omeka tutorial ourselves that kind of walks you through those steps. And I added examples of Omeka sites and examples of Omeka S sites, both directories for both of those. But those lists are kind of limited. There's so many more sites out there that I've seen, but it'll give you an idea at the very least. So Sarah, do you think I should stop sharing and share these links?
Maybe leave it up for just a second. Let's answer questions, and then we can do that. We had a couple of questions. One, Amelia asked if the server has to be Linux, and I had sort of followed up just quickly that you can also, doesn't have to be a locally hosted web server. You could go through a web hosting service like Reclaim.
Reclaim, yes.
GoDaddy, I think, to a certain degree, makes it pretty easy too. But
we do. We use Reclaim hosting at OU.
Yeah, you all have a really great setup for campus with Reclaim, I think too. But
yeah.
But if you do have to build your own, if you're building your own web server that you're then putting this on, I do think it's Linux based. Not to not answer the question. We also had a question. How often are updates required or recommended for Omeka.org, and how long has OU been using Omeka, or how long have you been working in Atera, and were you thinking about other products?
I've been working on it for 5 years. We've got our site that I showed you, that New Deal site is 5 years old. We've done updates on that one. It's about every year, twice a year. And we have it scheduled for automatic updates. You can, within our Reclaim hosting, you can kind of set it up so that the updates are automatic. But we also get notifications. We did have a scary moment where we were visiting the site and it was really wonky. Something was way wrong. There were no images. And we realized that we had missed an update, and it was just, minutes, seconds, for us to get it back up and going. So that's, just something to be mindful of. But it's not onerous at all. It's just staying on top of it and making sure that you're signed up for their notifications, because they're very good at that. Also, I forgot to mention that, the support, the forums are really wonderful. Every time I've, tried to troubleshoot something about a plugin or whatever, I just Google it and then I end up on their forum, or I go into their forum and I ask the question and I get an answer. So it's really pretty good support. And Omeka S, not as much, because, there are a couple of things I've asked questions about, and it seems like, well, we're still in beta and we'll be working on that upgrade, or we're kind of working on that. So there is, if you're using them, if you're working in Omeka S, some of their plugins are still in beta mode, but for the most part, it's sound. I think, was there another question, or did I get it?
Yeah, there's another question. Omeka seems more project driven. Is that a correct impression?
Project driven as opposed to?
I think as opposed to collection management, but that was from Nicole.
Yeah. I think maybe that, yeah, that's how they present it. It can be either, actually. I like it as a collection management. You can have internal notes. You can have all kinds of customizable fields. You can keep it private. I think it has some great advantages for, as in searchability. Full text searching is a little difficult. You can OCR and have Solr search engine, Solr indexing, but really it's a good collection management system. So it's pretty sound. Not, it's good. Omeka Classic is great if you're wanting to kind of have a nice collection management system for your, your institution.
And I think you talked about this being able to pull in, ingest things through a CSV.
Yes.
I think makes that really easy to update and really easy to integrate different kinds of collections, different kind of objects into one unified collection management
yes.
system. Another question, is there going to be a charge for Omeka S? I think the answer is no. There's not going to be a charge for
No. If you're,
unless you need to pay for a web developer.
Or depending on who's hosting it. Like if your institution, your organization is hosting it, Omeka, there's no cost to Omeka. It's open source for you to download. Yeah, I was able to download it for, we have our, Reclaim, we have our web server, so I was just able to download it easily. No problem.
There was another question earlier too about image ingest, and the question was, can images be added directly to the site, or can they be like pulled in through another system? And
it depends on the system. Like, I don't know, like some people are interested in maybe going from Content-DM or I don't know. Images are trickier, and I will confess I haven't done batch load of images, so I don't want to answer if I don't know for sure. And I would kind of, I would seek the guidance of the Omeka people.
Yeah, I've actually done some of that, and it's kind of complicated. Yeah, like there's an OAI PMH function that you can actually connect with. If there's a system that you have that you can turn that on with, like Content-DM, you can just basically suck all the metadata from those collections in. But
that's right.
I have not been able to figure out how to connect with images, because you have to then load the images into Omeka via the Dropbox plugin, And
Yeah.
there is a way for you to crosswalk that, but I am not sophisticated enough to figure out like what the programming piece of that is. So
Yeah.
it's possible, but it's more complicated than an entry level mind to this maybe can do.
Yes, I agreed. I think you're right, Sarah, 100%. I think that it might require a little configuring in some coding, perhaps, possibly, I don't know, but I think there's going to be a little bit of development time that would go into making that happen. I mean, I'm sure, I think it can be done. It's just, you might need some help or, kind of consult others.
It just takes some time.
Yeah.
If you want to stop sharing and then load those,
Yeah.
I think there's a couple
Okay.
more
Okay.
questions. So
Oops, I didn't mean
is
to do that.
Omeka.net closer to Omeka Classic, or is it entirely different? And if you have a collection on Omeka.net and changed, well, is there a way to transfer? Is like, I think the question is if you're on Omeka.net and you change to Omeka.org, does the data transfer?
Yeah, so what you're doing, the difference between net and org is that you're saying they're hosting it on they're hosting it on their server, and then you're saying, okay, we're going to host it on our server now. That's omeka.org.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying, yeah, send us the site, and we'll host it on our server. So you're basically
Omeka.net
canceling.
does use Classic though.
It does use Classic. It also uses Omeka S.
Okay, you can choose either one.
Yeah. Yes.
And then I think I think the other question is maybe like if you start with one, are you really wedded to that one, like a net versus org, or is it easy to transfer from net to org?
I don't know if it's easy, but I know you can cancel your subscription, and you just have to be prepared to be able to host it yourself. If you're canceling your .net subscription, your cloud host, Omeka hosted subscription, then you have to be prepared to.
It seems like there's just like you can bundle all that data up and then
add it to your own. Yeah. But you just have to be prepared to have your own server. That's all. Yeah, it's just deciding whose server it lives on.
If I did not get those questions correctly, please.
I hope that helped. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? I mean,
I blew through it.
Complicated or easy?
I like it. I just think it's it's just, it's like a Toyota. It's really dependable. It's really a great content management system. And it's or whatever car you think is really, just a good running, dependable system. It's great for that. And if you're willing to take the time, it can be a really beautiful, stunning site too.
There's another question. Have you done much with adding media?
Yeah.
Videos and
videos are easy, just like adding images. It's really not difficult at all.
You can embed YouTube or Vimeo, or you can have it hosted.
Yes.
You just embed it into a simple page.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Sarah. You can embed it into a simple page. Right. Or you can have it as an item.
I'm going to follow up on that again because this is also something I recently have had to deal with. There is a open source indexing called OHMS, which is called the Oral History Metadata Organizer, right? There is a plugin for OHMS within Omeka, and there's actually like a theme that it's more like easily built into, but it's one of those things too that helps with displaying audio or video files that have text associated with them. So it links, if you're working through the OHMS plugin outside of Omeka, it's pretty easy to integrate it within Omeka records.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's a great one. Yeah, there are so many great plugin features, and some I don't want to scare you away from because some are just really you're able to integrate them easily. Just a few, as just want you to be prepared mentally. It may take a little fiddling. So,
All right, do we have other questions? We're just a little bit over the half-hour mark, but I did give you warning. And give a second to type. Do you have a favorite, other than, I mean, you showed a few of your favorites, but do you have a favorite Omeka
well,
site?
there's this one I love. It's on non-traditional composers that has their musical scores, and then it has biographical information about the composers, and it's just an opportunity for people to highlight underrepresented collections. There's a lot of civil rights, social justice, all kinds of interesting art. Really, it really brings up people's creativity because they have that. They're empowered to kind of create their own collection. So, yeah. There's some great ones out there.
I haven't seen the music one. That's neat.
It's a great one, composer's one. So thanks, everyone.
All right.
I'm always here for questions. I'm glad to share my slides if that's needed. So.
Yeah, Tara, this was also really helpful, the links you left for examples, new tutorials. So,
okay.
All right. I'm going to stop the recording.